And I was like, whoa. Like,
that was the camera, right? Oh, it looks the same as my other camera, but it took twice as long.
I was in shock, Chris. I was like, oh my God, these are so good.
Okay, we have director and commercial cinematographer Sofia Pompei. I just want to get right into it because it's going to prime everything. Does gear matter?
Yes, gear does matter. Yes, indeed. But it also depends on its context, in my opinion. These are the first questions that you should ask yourself. What are you shooting? What is it for? What format will be used on? Is it a YouTube video? Is it a documentary? Or is it a commercial? The gear that you choose will influence a lot the vision of the whole project. So yeah, it doesn't matter.
If you use really high-end gear for like a social project, it almost doesn't work on the strategy for the brand as much anymore, which is interesting because like there's a priming that the audience has where they go, this is what I expect to see. And so we're even seeing this trend now where people are doing like a really low quality, like filming BTS clip, and then it cuts to the high quality footage. But the first shot is like shot on a phone versus like on a really high-end camera. And so I think I agree with you. It's really important to ask the question of like, what am I shooting? Where is it going? Who is going to see it? And that influences the gear. So yeah, that's a good way of looking at how much the gear matters in the context of things. Because I think a lot of people buy gear and then they're like, oh, now I'm going to be successful on social, like as an example. And it's like, no, that actually could work against you.
Even also when I first started in cinematography, I think the first camera I've ever used was a C300 Mark II, actually.
Yeah, that was the camera, right? Like if you use that, you were like, I'm making it.
$20,000 camera, yeah. And that was my first like stepping stone in terms of like I felt that I was slowly making it, because if I advanced in gear, automatically my placebo was telling me, oh, like you're advancing in your career. Wrong. Absolutely. It feels that like these two things need to come simultaneously. You know, I feel that every time that I go on set, every time I have a production, I try to do something different, or I try to use a different type of gear just so I can grow professionally as well.
Yeah, I think there's always for me, I've experienced it quite a bit where you have like stagnation and you get so comfortable, and sometimes the gear can even influence to push you further to like develop your skill set. At the same time, it can also like get in the way.
100%. It can slow you down.
Yeah.
Exactly. And going back to what you said too, specifically like for socials, like you might not use a Sony Venice, you might use an FX3, because if you use a Sony Venice, it might slow you down in terms of a gear. You need to get an AC. There's like so many elements that come into your camera choice that can slow you down.
And if you're not oiled in it too, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's actually slowing us down. We have to do another day of shooting now just because I thought it would look better on this camera. I did that all the time with a red. I would rent a red and I didn't know enough about it. And I'd go into the shoot thinking the client would be stoked. And then I'm like, oh, it looks the same as my other camera, but it took twice as long.
Yeah. And the editing process is horrible.
Yeah. What is our first piece of gear that you're going to chat about? I'm very excited because you brought mostly like cinema gear, and I'm like very excited to nerd out about this.
The reason why I chose these pieces that we're going to talk about is also because most of these pieces I use in my kit all the time, but also like they really influence my look, like as a cinematographer, but also as a director.
I'm curious where you're going to pick first, but what's on the docket?
I think that we should start with our Laowa 12 mil.
Ooh, yes.
The Laowa 12 mil. This is probably one of my favorite lenses, just to like also pair with other famous cinema lenses like Cooke S4s, or just like the DZO too as well. Like these are great and very versatile in my opinion. But the reason why I love them is because of the ultra wide effect and zero distortion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? Zero distortion?
Zero distortion, 100%.
Interesting.
And this is one of the main reasons why I use them so much. If I think about it, I shot all my favorite shots with them. If I think about all my high angles, very interesting perspective. The reason why you want to use these specifically is so you can show a larger landscape. So if it's like architectural design, or you just want to make sure that you see, like, for example, my Sony commercial, I really wanted to see all the bookcases. So putting it on a ladder very, very unsafely with a mini was just a great choice, because I was able to see the whole space. We were able to see multiple actors. And the most important thing, I didn't have those weird distortions that sometimes you get with anamorphic look, for example. And as a commercial cinematographer, just drives me nuts.
Yeah, I think it's that's why I was so surprised when you said there is no distortion, because I think I only assume that when you shoot with a wide lens, you're always gonna have it, especially if you have like an actor or somebody on the side. They're like now like lurching around. You're like, I don't want that.
It's you get that very weird distortion, and it's specifically in like very like symmetrical lines, you know, and like if we shoot like during the wall, and then you see all those wonky lines, or even what you were saying, that the banana face effect. You know, it can be used practically, but specific for my style, I like to keep it more of a cleaner commercial look. But the great thing of these lenses is that they have a 7-inch focal distance.
Yeah, that's super close.
That's super close, right? So that means if you're shooting at this distance, let's just put out these are 7 inches, the object that you have in front will look like very big, and like everything in the background will look a little bit smaller. So in terms of commercial, this can be used in very different ways.
Yeah, you can let it influence almost how the audience feels about the subject that it's shooting, which I think is really cool. And what I thought was funny is that you actually own this lens, and it gets rented out often, to the point where like when we were filming today, I had to go and rent this from a rental house. So like I'm also very curious. It's like, how often is this getting used on set, and like what would a day rental be for something like this, and what is like the kind of final cost in US dollars? We can put it down here.
Sure. Roughly, I think in Canadian dollars, actually, I think it's around, I think we bought it for like under $3,000 at the time.
In all fairness, it's a very expensive lens from like the creator's perspective, but I think for like cinematography, you're kind of like, no, that's what a cinema lens
That
costs.
is, yeah. And then also, it's actually one of the cheaper ones, because we're talking about cinema lenses. We're talking about sometimes are over 50 grand. Sometimes they're more expensive than the camera itself. So finding something that is affordable, it just like, it's one of those situations that like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It works. It works for my work, and it's affordable, it's cheap. And if you're trying to like rent it out for a day, it's probably around like $200-$300 depending on the rental house. So my recommendation is, if you're shooting on a weekend, you get it for 2 days.
Yes, that's always the little hack, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it's honestly one of my go-tos in all most of my productions. I just always have it on standby just in case. And also sometimes if you're using, like, let's say you're shooting on the Cook S4s, but you might not have the budget necessarily at the beginning to get a full set.
Yeah.
Just get your 3 favorite ones. So maybe it's like a 50 or the 32, and then maybe a bit of a more of a macro lens, and then keep these as your ultra wides for all your master wides shots. So, and again, it's don't reinvent the wheel if it works.
Yeah.
There's amazing ultra wide lenses out there that are like so much more expensive, but I think this is especially for someone that is beginning into cinematography, it's just a great lens.
Yeah. And I actually have a question for you, because I think I'm only starting to explore this now, but I think we're living in such an amazing time for cinematography as well as like the creator space, where there's a lot of like alternative lens options out there now. And a lot of these brands overseas are making like high quality glass, where in the past, I think we would have been like, don't touch those. There's artifacts, color manipulation, things that are not going to match with the professional. But now you're seeing brands like DZOFilm or Lawa come into the game, and people are like using it regularly. What is your opinion of like kind of like the classic world of like Zeiss versus like where it is right now? And I'm not telling you to pick one or the other. I'm just curious about your opinion on it.
This is actually a very good question. For someone that when I first started, I'm a very type A personality, so I like what I like, but also I like to challenge myself a little bit more. I love Zeiss glass just in general, master primes, ultra primes, any of them. You're speaking my language in terms of just through filtration as well. It brings out the commercial look. But the first time that I used the DZO, the new ones, I was in shock, Chris. I was like, oh my God, these are so good. The skin tones, everything, the colors are just stunning.
I think what these Chinese manufacturers are having the biggest issue with these days is really just like adoption of the product, because now they're getting to the point where they're so good. And I think what is interesting is like, if we look at a brand like Aperture Lighting, like a couple years ago, you would have been like, oh, never. And now you go to a rental house and like you go on set.
Everything is Aperture.
Everything is Aperture.
100%.
And I think that's a really interesting thing, where all of a sudden we're getting a big shift where things are becoming more affordable. Those companies are also offering products that like the professional space needed. And now it's really about, okay, we have the legacy items like Zeiss, and now they're getting like kind of like pretty heavy competition to like brands like DZOFilm or Lawa. And I just think it's an interesting thing is that probably in the next like 5 years of film, as things are getting smaller, more affordable, just across the board, I think it's amazing because the accessibility is more available, and people might complain that like budgets are going down, but the reality is that like we can move quicker and faster and make better things. Hopefully, still doesn't change the creative process. Still need good stories and ideas because I think creative is king. But ultimately, when we're talking just about gear specifically, I'm really excited about a lot of the competition kind of disrupting the market so heavily.
And I think maybe also the main reason is you said it best, like budgets are not what they used to be like 10 years ago. And I can say that as a director, but also a director of photography. I guess maybe these companies are also trying to find ways to make the process just easier, faster, and cheaper. You know what I mean? And like that's why every year we have something new, something cool, you know, that we all want to try out. And like Ashi will bring us to our item number 2.
This video is brought to you by Artlist. So I want to show you something. I just made this automotive clip that you're watching right now using AI. I'm going to give you a breakdown of how I made this in Artlist. I definitely don't consider myself an AI artist at all, but I was playing around with Artlist's new AI features just to see what I could make. So I took this photo of a Mercedes-Benz GTR a while back and I wanted to put it into a new location. I needed 2 images for this. So I went into the text to image feature. I selected photorealism and I just said, put a road on a desert backdrop, and it produced this. Then I went into the image to image feature, uploaded both of these photos, and then I basically asked it to combine it together to put the car naturally on the road and to make it a sunset setting, and it produced this final image. So I was really happy with this photo, but I wanted to take it a step further and turn it into a video. So there's an image to video feature, and Artlist just launched their new Pro VEO 3 edition, which basically turns an image into a cinematic video with audio attached to it. So I took this image, I added a bunch of information to the prompt, and that's how I got this final video clip. If you guys want to try this out yourself, you can head over to Artlist or click the link in the description below to learn a little bit more about what Artlist has to offer. Thank you, Artlist, for sponsoring this week's episode of Gear Matters, and let's head back to Sofia and the gear that she's using. What's next?
So actually one of the newest lights that I kind of like added to my kit, actually literally this year, is the new MC Pro.
Yeah.
And not specifically with this diffusion, but with the bubble diffusion specifically.
Yeah.
And it's just changed a lot of like just the look of my cinematography style, specifically for like coverages of like faces and just like closer shots. It's one of those tools that I wasn't expecting to do so well.
Yeah.
And I think the first time I've actually seen it in use was with my good friend Nick Pilecki, amazing cinematographer based in Toronto as well. And we were shooting an LCBO commercial. I was directing specifically. And then he brought out the MC with this little bubble diffusion.
Yeah.
And a lot of cinematographers will use it as an on-camera light.
Yeah.
So if I'm shooting, let's say, a coverage of you, probably have it here on the left side or on the right side, depending on where the lighting.
Like that? And is this like on an articulating arm kind of to the side?
Yeah, exactly. So it does come with little screw points on here on the bottom. And then also, it doesn't have to be used as an on-camera light, but this is what I like to use it for.
Yeah.
But you can also use it for like small spaces, for example. So let's say we have 2 actors and they're sitting in the front, but it's very tight, small car, and you can't necessarily put a big light in there. These guys can really save the game, and also just like having the different types of diffusing that comes with the kit. Is such a game changer. Yeah. I do have one note for Aperture about these. So these are magnetic. I don't know if you could hear that. Specifically for the diffusion bubble.
Yeah.
It's happened to me so many times to scare so many people on set because it falls off.
Yeah.
So if you have a slight little nudge or like maybe the AC is trying to like recable something, it just like it can fall off really quickly, and it's like the noise is so dramatic that everyone's like, oh, what broke? So that's the only thing I would tell Aperture is like, let's find something better to like click it or like so it actually stays on the light. But other than that, it's one of those, I call it my Swiss Army light.
Yeah.
Like truly, it's one of those lights that you can use in so different ways. Full RGB, stronger than the first ones that they came out with. And
I still have the first ones, and my difficulties with those, and they've made a lot of improvements, but I used to have a lot of issues with the battery. Battery actually would get too hot and then start to expand. Right. And I used to like use them on the metal trim above where we're shooting right now, because they could actually just magnet to anything that was metal. But then it got pushed out just enough that you couldn't magnet anymore. The moment you lose like foundational practicality, it loses its function. And so I'm like, okay, like it has to change to something else. And at some point I'd like to, but now aperture is just getting to like a higher price point. Like a light like this in Canadian dollars is like $289.
100%.
And that kit behind us, which is like the 12 kit, which is amazing, it's still like that's a hefty price tag for somebody that might not use all 12 lights or 10 lights.
100%. I feel that if it's your first starting, I think the generation 1 actually comes with a charging case. It comes with 4, I believe. So that is like a better price range. And also if you're just starting, it's just like, it's one of those little practical lights that you can use in so many different ways. I've been in situations even on set where we're like, we got 2 minutes to get the shot. And it's like, we need a bit more fill. And I would tell my team and be like, tell my gaffer and be like, okay, let's get a MC on standby right now. Let's just bring a little bit, like if you don't have anything that is just like fast and furious kind of thing, these are the lights to go with.
And I like to work that way too, because I think coming from the world of like the commercial space, everything always takes a little bit longer for setups for shots, but where you can speed up the process in any capacity, so being able to like magnet quickly attach things to it. I also am a big fan of these lights. It's just for me, ever since mine have bubbled, I got to upgrade to the new one. So
if you're buying the Fusion bubble specifically, first of all, it's whoever designed it knew exactly what they were doing, because it's just the shape itself distributes lights in a very organic way, and it just makes it look really good. And also you're able to catch sometimes a bit of an eye light in there.
Oh, nice.
Just brings a little bit of punch. You can obviously, the intensity depends also on skin tone or the environment. There's a lot of things that will determine if you want to use that light. But again, it's just so versatile. She's not extremely expensive. And it's one of those things that you should always have in your kit.
Yeah, I like what you said about it being a Swiss Army knife, where you can, I think a lot of people can sometimes have the mentality being like, I'm on set, I'm only coming for my skill and I'll use the gear that's available. But having stuff with you that can kind of just like always be available to tweak the shot so that you're elevating your content, I think is huge. A friend of mine has those like mirrors where you can like reflect the light and kind of like bounce them around. I think something like that, something like this are like good things to just have, because you never know when you need to just like elevate your shot a little bit. So great recommendation.
Now, one last thing that I want to say about these ones too, and you probably can notice it too because you have the generation 1, is that they're much more color accurate. Yeah. I've actually did a test with my partner and we just put like, I think it was just red, the 2 reds, and we're like, oh my God, it's night and day. Yeah. So it's one of those things, if you are looking into investing a small MC, maybe spend a little extra and maybe not get the full set right away. So
it's funny, 10 years ago when we would start out buy like the Chinese lights, and my friends would always be like, oh, the color accuracy is so off on these, and I didn't understand what they were talking about.
Like, it's red, whatever, it's fine.
But it's not even really as much of a thing anymore. Like almost all of the like secondary brands, let's call them, stuff like Aperture, Nanlite, they're color accurate and you can use them and you see them on set way more. I remember the era of ordering a light where I had to be in like a WhatsApp email chain or like WhatsApp group chat to like order things online with like 10 other people to get a discount. It took like 5 months to get it. Now it's like, oh, I need this light, I can get it tomorrow off of Amazon.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's like a huge thing. Okay, what do we have that we would see on a commercial set with you?
I think one other piece of gear that I always use are these lovely Solidcom Hollyland headsets that we use probably in almost in all our commercial productions, even the smaller ones, to be honest. And these are the kind of reasons why I think, especially when you're working as a cinematographer and maybe not necessarily as a... Maybe not so much as when you're working as a director, because when you're working as a director, you're mic'd up with your first AD or with client side producers. So it's very different conversations from like what the DOP will have with this camera team, lighting team, Ginny. So it's just it's always best to keep those 2 transmissions separate.
Absolutely.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
When I'm DPing specifically, I love using these because it's just direct communication with my team. So if we're about to shoot, we have a couple of seconds before rolling, we need to move a light a little bit more to the left side because we can see the C-stand in the shot. Put the mic down and maybe communicate to your team or whoever is available. Hey guys, like we really need to move that light. Or like even if you're working for either first AC and like you're like, hey, do you need to get your marks for focus? And you're like, yep, let's do that again. It feels like you're having these private conversations on a busy set and you're able to communicate efficiently what you need to your team. And that's half of the job, honestly, as a cinematographer, but also as a director in general. Like, clear communication can save a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I would agree with you. For us, we use this a lot in automotive because we usually have somebody who is like driving a car and then someone who else is like distant. So having the ability to just tell them, hey, come closer, go further away, keeping safety on set as like a big concern, but also like you mentioned, the client communication is such a massive part because the amount of times I've been on set being like, oh, can I pull you away for a separate conversation just so that the other person doesn't hear what's going on?
100%.
Because there's always things that are going to come up in the last second where it's like, we didn't expect this or we can't get the result of this. And you have to learn how to like translate that back to the client. I think anything that speeds that up on set is going to save time and money because ultimately the most expensive part of a production process typically is the actual shoot day. And if it starts to go into like overtime on a commercial set, it's way too expensive. Yeah. So anything that even saves like a couple of minutes of like walking from here to here, I think is massive. And again, we're leaning into the world of like a Chinese manufacturer that's making a very reliable product.
For sure. And another thing that I want to touch on is like the domino effect of just like the clear communication, like just everything going smoothly. It will enhance just the professionalism on set as well, because the client side or whoever is on the other side of our camera team, and it's just they see a very clear communication. They see us, like moving fast. We're not bothering anyone, so it's just like automatically, just like in terms of optics, is also, it just enhances the production itself.
I also think about the energy and the vibe on a set. I think the moment you start to have a lot of like yelling, it can also just like completely change the way that like the energy is there, especially if you're trying to really like hone in on like an actor that's trying to like be in a really like intense headspace or something like that too. If you have people screaming like change the light, like that's disruptive to someone. He's like, whether or not it's just being loud for the sake of being able to, for someone to hear you, I think that all influences the success of a shoot. And so this also just allows everything to like remain calm while using good comms.
Exactly. And that honestly, you said it best. Like I've been in situations, for example, even 2 weeks ago, I was on a big production and I was directing specifically. And my cinematographer, Luke, first of all, he's amazing. He was communicating constantly with his team because it was a bigger set. And I'm obviously briefing the actors. So there's multiple people talking over, and I can see him on the side, just like on his little headset, just communicating things that we need to do just before the shot. So where it's like we're multitasking in a very efficient and quiet way.
I'm really excited about one of the options that you're about to show us because I can see it right here. Why don't we show it?
We're talking about probe lenses.
So you actually use the Lacie one, which is, from my knowledge, is like kind of the OG probe lens. And again, that's all on rental today. So we have a few other options that we can talk about because it's starting to expand. It's not just like one company makes this. There's actually like 3 companies from our knowledge that make various options. But talk about this lens and like how it shows up in your workflow and also why you chose to buy it.
These are very specific lenses used for specialty shots, and also it gives you a very ultra wide effect. And that means specifically also because of the look and the way it was engineered. It was meant to be like placed in small spaces, or if it's like inside a tube between 2 books, or if you want to see your button, like we'll see the stitching for it. So not only has the ultra macro look to it, but it also used also with movement. It just like it screams commercial. It screams commercial look. And in my specific work, I like to use it for product. So if I'm shooting a commercial for McDonald's, we did use these lenses, and we built like a Big Mac box, and we put a little hole in it, and then we had the lens going inside the box, and then we had the actress at the same time opening the box. So you want to use these lenses specifically for any reveal shot or something that you need to stay on the product close enough that you see texture, that you see, like the glossiness of the bun or the sesame seeds. So I think this is an intentional lens, and you need to know how to use it properly.
So we're looking at an investment like this DZOFilm one, which is technically a zoom option, which we haven't really seen in the space too much. We also have this like Astahori one. So the DZOFilm one, $4,000. This Astahori option's about like $1,300, and then like the OG Lacie one is around like $1,400. It's still quite expensive for a lens. Like, why did you want to buy that?
I wanted to buy it specifically because I just found, in terms of being specifically a commercial director of photography, I use it quite often. And specifically in my work, I do a lot of automotive, I do a lot of food. fashion. It's just one of those lenses that I try to, like I try to cheat in a shot or two always with probe. It just enhances the production value completely. Even if you're doing a smaller shoot, and if you have the chance of renting it out for 1 day or 2 days, choosing a lens like this, it will really improve your portfolio and it will really show.
I also think it just works really well for social because everyone's like, what is that? I remember seeing it for the first time. Someone was shooting like a bug. And I think that's like originally why they made it for like those macro like bug shots.
Exactly.
And now everyone's doing it for like, it's always about the lens going through things. So what are some of the pitfalls of a lens like this? Because I think we were just jamming on like f-stop being a big deal.
The only downfall in these lenses specifically, depending on what you're shooting, depending on your lighting kit, depending on so many different aspects, these require a lot of light.
Yeah.
Like a lot of light, especially if you're shooting at different frame rates. Example, a month ago, we got to shoot it was a beauty product, and we got to pair it with the Phantom. So like high frame rate cameras. So you can imagine how much light we needed to be able to use a Phantom, but also with the probe lens specifically. And we actually had the chance of submerging them in water because we had to get some bubble textures and stuff like that.
Yeah, you were telling me these are waterproof, which is wild.
Yeah.
Double check these other options, but at least the Lacie is.
At least, yeah. 100%. And like that's one of the reasons too why like specifically these ones here do have some LED lights on the front, because sometimes you just need a little bit more.
Yeah, they even know because this one is like F13, which is like wild, F13. But it literally has the lights built into the front of it there, and they're powered by a USB-C, which plugs into the side of that. This lens doesn't have that because it's actually a lower f-stop. It's f8, which is kind of nice considering it's a zoom.
Correct.
But I've always experienced having to make sure I also use this on a camera that has like a really high base ISO. So
correct.
Yeah, I had to shoot one time with the Sony A7S just because its base ISO was like 12,800.
Yeah.
Just to get exposure. I don't use this lens as often as I think I should, but I think I also do see it used a lot in commercial. Even when I picked this up, his Laowas were rented, but his preference was the DZO, which I thought was really interesting because he said the image quality of this is actually getting superior over what the OG. And again, I think it's just like all we need is like a bunch of people to start saying like, this is really good, this is really good. And you'll start to see a kind of a shift over to different products. But I think the fact that Laowa really paved the way so that other companies can run, I think is huge. And we need more unique lenses like this to influence new looks in the space.
I agree. Last thing I also wanted to say about these lenses, I don't know about these ones specifically, but most of them, Generation 2s, do come with a peri-probe option. Peri-probe is basically a 90-degree attachment. So basically, instead of having it straight on, which is 0 degrees, it comes on the side. So if you're trying to get a specific shot that of an object that is a bit off on an angle, or is like you can't quite get the camera there, especially if you're using a larger cinema camera, the peri-probe can save the shot most of the time.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where like, again, you really have to know what your final shot is. Like, I'm not just throwing this into the bag to be able to get it. Although what I do appreciate about this Astahori one is that it does have the like option to break it down, so you can like do this, which is kind of nice, at least to fit it into a camera bag should you want to get a specialty shot. But I still find this to be quite invasive for taking around. In case you wanted to get the shot, I think you like almost only go into it going like, no, I know what shot I need to get, and now I'm using this lens. All right, what is our final piece that we would see influencing your work?
The final item that I want to chat about today is the Astera Titan tube specifically. So Astera actually designed 3 sizes for these lights. This is the Titan tube. This one is probably the most standard one that you'll find in film sets, but we also have the Helios, which is the smaller version one, and then we have the Hyperion, I think it's called, which is like the longer one, which is like approximately 2 meters. These 3 tube lights were actually made for cinema use again, specifically. So you'll see them in a lot of different film sets in like cases because they usually come in for 6 sets, but like in bigger, large commercial sets, we'll probably use around like 8 or to 16, depending on what we're shooting specifically. This is like goes back to the Swiss Army type situation, because this light can be used as a key light, a hair light, fill light, any type of light, and also as a practical. It's one of those things too that when this light was engineered, it was built in a way that it could be built and attached to very different things. I was gonna say.
Yeah, we got the other version. We got the nan light version
This
of
is
it
the
too.
nan
But
light. Yeah. And that's actually a really good comparison because the reason why in cinema it's very rare you'll see someone using a nan light specifically. It's because the battery life is very different.
yeah,
Also, the intensity and the brightness, color accuracy. Again, we want things that work well on big commercial sets because time is money.
yeah, absolutely. I think reliability is always one of those big things. It's like I've owned these lights for 4 years, and the reason why it's plugged in is because I don't trust that the battery is going to last the entire shoot. And as much as I like love this brand and I love the fact that like it's accessible, I agree with you that there has to be trust in a product, and it only takes like one failure to all of a sudden
To
be like
learn.
to learn that you're like I don't trust this in the moments where it counts. And as much as we are getting there, I think that's where like companies like Aperture are really doing. And Nanlite makes amazing products, and you're also seeing it from like June and a lot of other companies. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, the reason why someone will pick this one and the kit is like very expensive, even just to rent,
It is.
that because you still need like 100% reliability on those things.
Talking about the kit itself, it does come with so many accessories to be able to build and like make sure that your gaffer or your key grip can mount the light safely, because most of these lights are also used for as overheads. So imagine, especially something like this. Okay, you have it on a C-stand arm right now, but most of the time you can't because the C-stand will be on the shot. So there has to be mounting points that would be safe enough to be over an actor or whoever is in the shot, kind of thing. So safety is always number one, and they really engineer this light in the best way possible, in my opinion.
I don't own this particular product, but we've only ever rented these in the past when we know that we need to make sure that we're like getting reliable shots or the color accuracy, because I think cinematographers still will just be like, I'd prefer to have that one over the other thing. And they'll do it. Like I'll bring nan lights out and they're like, sick, these are awesome. And
We'll
then
keep it as a plan B.
yeah. We'll keep it as like the secondary option. We're like, just in case we need to fill in anything else. And I think that's still a little bit of the world that we're coming into, is that although there's so many different options available to us, I think when you're working in a professional space, you still need professional gear that matches it. And even though we're starting to see some like, let's call it the creator economy or the more affordable options creeping their way onto film sets, it's still going to take a long time for the film world to like adapt that. And I'm sure you've already experienced that too.
For sure. I think what you said is the best. It has to happen just one time that one of these lights die on you and you're like in full on panic. We need to charge the light. We need to come back. We were like, sorry guys, we need 5 more minutes. And just like, it's just a chain reaction of like, you're wasting time. You might go in overtime just because of faulty equipment. Or I want to say faulty, but just not the right equipment for what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think that all influences like your ability to get hired again, your ability to make good choices, right? Because if you're willing to cut corners in certain areas, it kind of can influence all aspects of your work. And it really just does take one instance of like something falling, bringing a lot of attention to it that maybe just makes somebody go like, oh, okay, maybe not next time. Right. And you never really want the gear to influence your hireability as well. You came actually from Italy, came to Toronto and pursued this career. What advice do you have for anybody that is kind of like, I want to go after this?
I started my career approximately probably I say 7 years ago. So I didn't know anything about film when I first came to Canada, actually. I moved to Toronto from Rome, Italy. Now it's been almost 10 years, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of the film world, but I knew that I wanted to work in the advertising aspect of things. And I started working in different agencies, and then I got introduced into the more like the filmmaking world. It was just more smaller social shoots and stuff like that. But then later on, I was like, I know that I need some professional, but also just like knowledge and just in how this industry works. So just the gear can be for someone that just walks on a film set for the first time. It can be very intimidating because equipment, the people, the lingo, just like you feel like a fish out of water sometimes. And I think that everybody that steps on a film set the first time, that's what happens. It's just a very natural human reaction to like, whoa, this is a lot.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So my second step was you don't need to, but my professional goal for myself was I wanted to get more knowledge about the filmmaking world. So my number one step was getting my education. And again, Doesn't have to be film school. It could be YouTube. It can be books. It can be there's so much information nowadays that it's like you might not need to spend $20,000 on school to be able to become a cinematographer or a director. What I needed for myself, I needed something systematic. I needed something that I went into every single day because type A personality, maybe. I don't know. I just I like to, check those little checklists in order. But I went into film school knowing that I wanted to become a cinematographer. I wanted it so bad, Chris, and
I think they call that motivational intensity. It's when you want something or you crave something that your willingness to show up is increased. And so you're going to want to do it. But I also think one of the things that I recognize what you said is that having a system or even just putting money on the table to be like, I'm showing up and I want this, allows you, it's in the same way like if you pay a personal trainer, you're like more likely to actually stick to the program and actually learn the information. Because ultimately, yes, everything is there. You'll have to then curate to decide what is available to you online to access for free to learn everything. But there's still you as the accountability part. And if you are not self-motivated or have the motivational intensity to do it on your own, then it will just forever remain a goal. And you could be 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line and move the needle a little bit versus like 10 years, you're doing this on a regular basis. Like we had to slot you in your busy schedule to like fit you in today because she's working so much.
Yeah. And I think what you said it best, honestly. Like I needed specifically, yes, a system, but I look back in 4 years ago when the first time I even went to a cinematography class, and I just the attitude that I had, I was just like, I was so into it. I was so excited. I remember watching my cinematography professor, Michael Yari Davidson. He was just like a huge mentor, a huge part of my career that like I felt so lucky to be in that room to learn from this gentleman or any one of my professors. I was just like, I had a different mentality. And that's what I noticed even in terms of like, I hate to say this, but my peers weren't as excited.
Yeah.
I was like, you have, coming from a country that unfortunately doesn't give you anything, in terms of education, you always have to go get it, and coming to Canada, there were so many resources, even just my college alone had an LED wall, Chris. An LED wall. Like, what kid can say that I've shot on an LED wall, one of my first commercials? That mentality was just like, I did anything to get into that space, like I knew only to use the LED wall in our college, there was a process for it. So you have to pitch, you have to write a treatment, you have to find your crew. So it was just very like, they teach you from the beginning of how the real industry works. Like,
yeah. Like you have to earn it.
You have to earn it. Yeah. And I think it goes back to like, yes, not giving up, obviously, but it's just like, if you don't want it enough, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think there has to be a level of like honesty within yourself. It's that you have to want to really be in this space because there's so much competition that you still require being like, I have to find a way to like want to show up every day because this industry will like kind of beat you up a little bit.
But I think up.
Yeah. But I think the stamina is like the biggest thing. If you want to find Sofia's work, I will link everything below, including affiliates to all of the equipment that is here. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was my pleasure.